we mix up the word retention with loyalty, and they're wildly different things.
Dealership loyalty is super interesting. Nowadays, those customers really belong to the dealership, not the salespeople. We should be using those platforms for marketing automation, not considering that personalization. It could be so much better. It could be, hi, welcome to your store. Thank you so much for coming in again. I want you to have a great experience. Our industry is basically going to live and die by hospitality from this day forward.
Little things make big differences, and that impacts loyalty.
Welcome to Driven Loyalty, the podcast with proven strategies and expert insights tailored for automotive professionals looking to maximize retention, enhance customer experience, and drive sustainable growth. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Driven Loyalty, where I get to talk, well, anything and everything I want to talk about to what it actually takes to create real loyal customers in your business. And I'm not just talking about retaining them, I'm talking about actual loyalty. I got a great guest today. I'm actually super excited to jam with this guest. Excuse his little beach vibe. It's okay. I'm used to it. You may not be, but that's all right. Just kidding. I'm just messing with him. Anyways, before I introduce today's guest, we can't make cool content like this without our sponsor. And we got a cool sponsor for this one. So here's a quick message from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Podium. So here's a question for you. What would it mean for your dealership if you had one more employee who worked 24/7, never took a break, and was focused solely on turning every lead into a yes, even the after-hour ones, into test drives, a sale, and ultimately more revenue? Well, let's meet Jerry, Podium's brand new AI BDC. Jerry is a lead conversation machine, ready to jump on every lead that comes in instantly. He can answer questions, keep those leads engaged, and even schedule test drives, all without any direct human supervision. And here's the best part. With a seamless handoff to your sales team, your customers will never even know they were interacting with an AI. If you're curious about how Podium's AI BDC can help you move more cars, check it out at podium.com/SWJ. That's for Strategy with Jason. That's podium.com/SWJ, or just hit the link in the show notes below. All right, guys. I got the one, the only, the oh so famous. He paid me to say it. I have Jon Frederick with Freddie Media. Jon, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Thanks so much for having me on the show. I didn't know you opened it with hey, hey, hey. I thought you were going to go with hey now in honor of Stern, but I guess you can just pay licensing to Bill Cosby instead.
You know, it's so funny that you say that, because like I started this years ago and I was not a big Fat Albert fan. Like, I think as a kid, I probably saw maybe one or two episodes of it, but I wasn't a big fan. And so people ask me, they're like, where the hell did that come from? How did you start doing that? And it's like, I look back on the first podcast I recorded in 2015. I just opened, the camera came on, and for some reason, this inner Fat Albert came out, and I was like, hey.
It's a strong open. I would keep it. Who's your ultimate radio inspiration? Who's inspired you to produce a podcast?
Dude, that is a good question. I don't even know. Actually, here's a funny thing, Jon. And for a lot of people that have been watching me over the years, and dude, almost 2,000 episodes. We're almost at 2,000 episodes.
Congrats.
That's insane. I actually can't stand watching or listening to myself. For the longest time, whenever I did an episode and my team was going to go edit it, if I walked into the room where they were editing, back when we were like in the same office and stuff like that, they would turn off their monitors. Because I would go in there, I'm like, oh, I don't like that, change that, or add this, or can you move that around, or something like that. Like, honestly, I didn't even like it. So it was something I just had to get used to, man.
Oh, I was such a Stern guy. I feel like if anybody ever had an on-the-road sales job, they got so into Stern that you started understanding the back office and the random characters. And, as his show was winding down last week, he told some story about, or a lot of Norm Macdonald Stern clips got posted. And those were, if Norm was ever there, it was the all-time best.
You know what? I do like that. I would say if I had to say anybody, it would probably have been Gary Vaynerchuk, right? That's actually what started me to do the podcast. I was actually at Ford's head office. It was a marketing meeting. I kind of got sucked into it, and I'm in there, and we presented a few things. And one of the guys go in there, "Hey, you remind me a lot of this Gary Vaynerchuk," and I'm like, "Don't know who that is. Is that a good thing?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's a good thing." And that was the end of the conversation. So after the meeting, I get in my car and I'm Googling, I'm like Gary Heiner. How the hell do you spell this guy's name? And finally I find it. Oh, he's got a podcast. All right, I'll turn it on. I'm listening to it on my 45-minute drive home. Within 45 minutes, I knew what this guy's strategy was. I'm like, this is ingenious, because it was in line with what a mentor told me many, many years ago. No one cares about what you have to offer or sell them unless they know how much you care.
Right.
And that was the beautiful thing of the podcast. The podcast allowed me to go out there and show people that, man, I love this industry. It is an awesome industry, and I have nothing but great passion for it. So that's where the whole podcast went into.
I think Gary's under threat by Hormozy right now. I think Alex has become the GOAT of content for your business. And I think the number one Hormozy principle that I live and die by is just tell everybody how you do it. Give away your secret sauce. Everybody will go try and do it themselves, but once they figure out how much work it is, they just come back to you, and you get a lot of clients that way.
You're 100% right. And it's funny. I say Gary, and I probably haven't listened to one of his podcasts in probably 4 years. But that's who it was. That's how I got started. Okay. I know we're already getting into the podcast. Everyone's like, well, isn't this a podcast about loyalty? What are these guys talking about? Okay, don't worry, guys. This is what happens when I bring good friends onto the show. We go squirrel, and there we go. We went squirrel on you guys. Okay. Let's get into this. But first, what I want to do real quick, John, for everybody out there watching and listening, I love kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story, because I'm fundamentally interested. So let's start there, John. How in the world did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
Yeah, I was a townie on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I say that I was kind of a half townie. I went to prep school in Baltimore, so I'm not like a perfect Eastern Shore of Maryland redneck, but I'm kind of like half. And then on the Eastern Shore, there were a lot of DC guys that had their weekend and summer home, and Jim Coons was one of them. He had 30 stores in DC. My family had a family business. I was kind of the step kid. I was kind of like a look, don't touch. And then he kind of did the math and walked across the street and said, why don't you come work for me? So then Jim Coons put me in Tyson's Toyota, did that from 2012 to 2019 out of Clemson, and I was a salesperson, internet manager, desk manager, used car manager, general sales manager in their Toyota stores. Since I was 21, I've been kind of like back against the wall presenting my P&L in front of the Coons executive team and fellow general managers. I was always the young guy. I was always the youngest general sales manager, all these things. And now I feel like I'm a little older. I feel like I've kind of hit this point in my career where I'm definitely no longer the young guy. And, I bounced around. I've been a vendor. I was on the receiving end of a really cool moment in time where I got a bunch of leads because a social media account mentioned it, sold a bunch of car dealers product through it. And then from there, I helped bring that social media account to fruition on the business side. That was car dealership guy. And then after I kind of made my name doing that, I did it for a bunch of other people. I do it for Chris Kerner, Russ Flips Whips, George Saliba, Moving Merch, Benz and Bow Ties, Braden Shaw. I have a talent management company. We do marketing and training.
Dude, I love it. Look, this is the industry, right? Once you get bit by the bug, you're not out. You're always just kind of find some way to reinvent yourself inside of it, right? So like, no surprise to me that, in your early 20s, your mid 20s, you got bit by the bug. And then now here you are, and you're still in the vertical in some way, right? It's so funny. Look, I find people usually get into this business in one of three ways, right? They either stumbled into it through a fluke series of events. Okay. You happen to meet Jim Coon while he's away at his vacation home, right? Or they get born into the business, which I know for a lot of people out there watching and listening, you might fall into that category. Or like me, which I think a fair amount of it, you got conned into it. And I got conned into it. I admit I am one of those people that answered that newspaper ad that said, you want to make $100,000 a year, no education required, call this number.
I remember my interview with Coons. It was really funny because I was 22 years old, and they said, you're obviously really smart. I think that you can work really hard, and you have a very high likelihood to sit where I'm sitting. They said, but it really just boils down to are you cool with missing all of your kids' soccer games, never going to like anniversary dinner with your wife, missing all the holidays? And they're like, if you can do that, you're going to make over $1 million a year. And, you're 22 years old. I can say, sign me up. It's like the easiest yes in the world, but rubber doesn't meet the road until you actually have all those things.
That is very, very true. And I think there's a whole podcast that we could probably do just on some of those war stories. Actually, that might be a good idea. Okay, let's get into today's topic because I love this, right? Like the whole point behind driven loyalty is that I believe fundamentally as an industry, we've been focusing on the wrong set of data, right? We mix up the word, retention with loyalty, and they're wildly different things, right? So I think one of the big problems, and you identified it as well, is one of the big problems for not having more loyal customers is a lack of personalization in our follow-up marketing. And come on, guys, if you're out there watching, listening, you've ever worked at a dealership and you've dealt with a CRM, you know for a fact there's no personalization in there. It is about as robotic as you could possibly. In fact, actually, I think today the robots actually sound better than some of the humans out there. But anyways, let me kick it off here with just why you think this is a big problem, how it fundamentally affects loyalty at the dealership.
Yeah, dealership loyalty is super interesting because as dealers expand, all the customer data resides within the dealership's DMS and the CRM. Mm-hmm. So when our fathers sold cars, they had a book and they'd write, birthday cards to people and they'd keep the contact info and like a leather bound whatever. And nowadays, those customers really belong to the dealership, not the salespeople. And I think there's a little bit of push and pull right now because some salespeople are garnering large social media followings and suddenly their following is like their modern loyal book of business. And that's a lot of what I coach to businesses is like how to grow a following that's effectively loyal to you. But then is the dealership cool with that? I think that all of these dealership contacts that are being mass marketed to through email, text, all these CDPs or marketing automation platforms, it does miss personalization, even if you sub out the name, even if you get the correct trade, even if you get whatever personalization is. My thesis is more like we should be using those platforms for marketing automation, not considering that personalization, not considering that a personal touch. When the prospect or the person within your database is warmed up to enough where they decide to contact you through all the remarketing efforts, then you should be thinking, how many awesome, personalized, friendly human touches can I possibly engage this person with?
Great
we
point.
have a person on staff at my company who is really just an awesome vibe. She's really friendly. She's really nice. Nobody could ever get mad at her. We use AI to prospect outbound. They do all this emailing, texting, all this stuff. And then when they go to do like kind of the pre-meeting appointment, learn a little bit about you, qualify it, they're talking to a girl who's like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you. So, oh my goodness, I see that you've worked with us before. Is your AI, is all of your tech getting you to a really nice personalized human interaction? Or are you just trying to remarket perpetually and constantly?
Well, and that's a really good point. And that's how we wanted to kind of break down today's conversation, right? Because, I think to truly have loyal customers and to truly execute a personalized follow-up effort, all right, it is not just a piece of technology. It is the people, like you said, that friendly personality. It is a process. By the way, we talked a little bit about AI, and John, for anybody out there watching and listening right now, if you don't have a document process today based on today's technology, there's no effing excuse whatsoever for you not to have a documented process. You can literally go to ChatGPT right now, talk to it, not even type it, with some loose idea of how you want this process to play out, and it will document the whole effing thing for you. So it's a people, it's a process, and then you nailed it, John. It's a technology thing. Right. And so let's talk real quick because personalized follow-up, right? In the past, what is our industry used as personalized follow-up? They're
email blasts.
Exactly. Well, they're fill-ins, right? So I'm going to fill in Jason's name here and the make he's driving and the model and the year and maybe the date he purchased it, right? That's personalization. I can't blame us because from a technology perspective, that is about as personalized as we could get with what we have. Like when we think about what feels personalized to us, and I'd love to get your take on it, it has context of me as a person. So go back to what you were saying earlier about old school, having the black book. What was?
Yeah, I believe personalization is when you step out of the car, you are greeted by an employee, and it's effectively like a Ritz-Carlton experience.
Yeah.
Within that DMS resides all the information necessary to say, "Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Frederick. It's so nice to have you back at our store." Greeting somebody and welcoming them back and acknowledging them being a previous customer, and then saying something along the lines of, "Thank you so much for recently servicing with us." If you hit 3 points, "Thank you for coming back again. Thank you for recently servicing with us," then suddenly you're at an elevated experience that all the technology we have is capable of providing that information. But then we all walk up to the Fredericks walking through the front door. And we say, "Hey, how you doing? What are you looking for today?" And it's like, it could be so much better. It could be, "Hi, welcome to your store. Thank you so much for coming in again. Thank you for being a loyal service customer. We want you to have a great experience." Our industry is basically going to live and die by hospitality from this day forward. It's not really persuasive closing. It's, displaying your personality, kind of conveying who you are, and being really, really pleasant to deal with.
You're 100% right. All right. The customers felt known by you, right? There are some great technologies out there. In fact, I know one that's in the service bay right now. And this is not necessarily new as much as it is just now becoming more popular, mainstream. All right. Every time the car comes in, it rolls over this set of sensors and it scans, including scanning the license plate, which now associates it to the customer. What pops up on the big screen so the person that is escorting them into the service bay sees their name. All right.
Smart.
So the door opens. "Welcome back, Mr. Harris. It's great to see you." Do I know you? Hold on a second. What? This is before, just as they're walking out the door. That type of personalization. See, I think we get confused is that, it's little things that make really, really big differences. And, it goes like, let's talk a little about people, because I think you got some great examples of this, right? Of people using technology to enable friendly encounters, right? Like the one I just gave you, like that's a friendly encounter of like, "Hey, I just drove my car into the service bay. Guy opened the door, said, 'Hello, Mr. Harrison, welcome back.'" Like they
Right.
know.
I mean, Jason, we have such an easy ability to understand customer lifetime value, the potential that you could get by not only retaining, but making sure they come back and evangelize your store. Yeah. That should be really the only purpose of technology, is empowering human interaction. I was the BMW championship this weekend was at Caves Valley in Baltimore. I grew up caddying there, and the standards at which you had to interact with people at Caves Valley was intense. There was over 10 billionaires as members there. You had to really, it went beyond personalization. You had to know wives. You have to ask what their children are doing. You have to display interest in members. And I do believe that, it's that sort of like customer service role, that hospitality role, that has a huge place in our business going forward. That Ritz-Carlton, that Caves Valley caddy person, that's who's going to ensure you're going to have a great experience. When I started off in the business, I was shocked how a lot of salespeople were arm twisting. A lot of them were pissed off at how long it took a customer to make a decision. It just face value day one in the industry. I was like, whoa, there is rampant entitlement. Yeah. There's people saying, "You're wasting my time." I don't know, it's pay plans or whatever. I totally understand the situation people are put in. But we did not really optimize for customer service or hospitality. We optimized for, raise your hand if you're willing to work 6 days a week from 8 a.m. till 1 a.m. Yep. And you'll stay late to make a mini on Saturday night. That's kind of what we've always optimized for, unless you were in a luxury Highline store. But with the advent of technology doing a lot of the heavy lifting, perhaps you can operate a little more efficiently. You can offer a better schedule to an employee, and now you can hire what would be the Caves Valley caddy or the Ritz-Carlton front desk person.
Well, dude, and I love the fact that you say that, because we say in our business all the time, this is a people business.
Yep.
Where the hell are the people? I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a dealership, hefty size, and I've walked into, let's see, the last 4 months, probably about 400 or 500 dealerships I've walked into.
Yeah.
All right. And don't get greeted. No one's saying hi. They're literally sitting at their desk, staring at their computers going, please don't make eye contact. Please don't.
Oh man, that is such a pet peeve of me when they don't stand up and greet somebody.
Let's bring the people apart. Like it's a little, here's the thing, guys. The thesis is that little things make big differences, and that impacts loyalty, like personalization. All right. We got to bring the people back into this business. And I'm sure when you're in the business, you saw some great example of this playing out.
Every dealership employee should go work for Publix for 2 weeks before they started the store, because I used to sell wine to Publix. Okay. And even as a vendor, if you came within, I think it was like a 20-foot rule, 15 to 20 feet of a customer, you had to acknowledge them. You say, hey, sir, how's your day going today? And that was such a great Publix rule. And I believe other companies, perhaps like Disney World, has the same rule. Mm-hmm. But that little fundamental human touch, human interaction, that's what drives loyalty, in my opinion. Who had a great experience? Who had like a unique, cool experience? And that's what our industry can provide, because we do hire what would otherwise be personality hires. And that's what we encourage in, the Russ Flips Whips thing we do, where we teach dealership employees how to do content. We really see this as an empowering moment where you give the employee a chance to build their own following, which is in effect reputation management, employee engagement and loyalty, because you start taking control of your own business. I think the reason the greeting isn't there, I think the reason that like the fine hospitality touches aren't there, is because that's not the salesperson's customer anymore. That's Mr. So-and-so's customer. That's the rooftops customer. And for the past 20 years, that's what we've taught. The customer belongs to the store. That is not your customer. That's the store's customer. And that ownership that we fought, where the salesperson said, no, you can't hand my previous customer to somebody else. That's my customer. That was them clinging to like career satisfaction, dignity, all these things that have been effectively steamrolled out of our business. But now that we have technology that can do heavy lifting and do like the busy work, we got to get it back to that. This is my customer. I know him. I'm going to stand up and greet him. I'll take care of him. That's ownership and that's dignity. I mean, do you think who puts more pride in their career right now? Like an excellent realtor who's kind of running around town networking and knowing everybody? Is that?
Well, I give Walmart more credit than most dealerships I've visited. At least they pay someone to sit there and say hello.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's a hospitality function, but we can sit here and, almost said the B word, we could complain about it. Or how do we go about training hospitality? I think that's the only thing that drives loyalty.
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is a perfect segue into the process side, right? Because, look, guys, you're all out there watching and listening right now. I know that you are loyal to something. Maybe it's a food or a beverage brand, or maybe it's a clothing company or a chain of hotels. I definitely have mine. All right. And look, the little things they execute on don't just happen by accident. It happens because they're intentional. Just like Jon was talking about with Publix. Okay. Within 10 to 15 feet, they were programmed, they were process, all right, to execute something. And it may be something as small as just saying hello and how's your day, all right? But those little things make big differences. And that's why we go into kind of the process side of getting personal. Because like we said, first thing first, guys, if you've been watching the show, first thing first is the people. You got to bring the people part back, okay? There needs to be that handshake, that eye to eye, that friendly voice, all right? Like there's a lot of things that we do or we say without actually saying. Okay. So that body language, that all needs to be like, I want to feel like people want me there. That sounds crazy, but guys, I'm telling you, that's super important. Now let's get into the process side, Jon. How do we process, all right, that personalization and some of our follow-up marketing to ultimately create more loyal customers?
Yeah. So how do we build the process?
Or some examples.
Yeah, I would say it really is simple things. It's, you have to have, right now we teach a lot of closing. You know what I mean? I feel like when I was at the sales floor, you had to know how to do a great TO. You had to force people to say yes in the moment. And that's kind of what came at the cost of customer service, I believe. But I think that there are dignified, or there's playbooks out there. There's the Ritz-Carlton playbook, there's the Publix playbook. And then it really is just kind of the rules that you'd learn if you were a waiter at a restaurant. It's greeting people, making sure they're taken care of, making sure that, everything's progressing and they're having a great time, pivoting it to having a great time. I think that there's enough how to close out there. And if you can't close, then it's just not the right thing for you.
Sure.
But I think withdrawing objections, being able to overcome objections deliberately can't come at the cost of the customer service. And every store is going to have their own process, but greeting would be a thing you can start with, thanking people for previous business, calling them the next day to thank you so much for buying a car, calling them 30 days later to thank you for buying a car, implementing really fundamental things like that. And even the way you present numbers, learning how to set the stage so that you're about to go present numbers and ask somebody for the business, but you're not going to do it in a rude way. The way I always used to say that is, okay, guys, thank you so much for going on the test drive with me. I'm going to go up to the sales tower right now. I'm going to get a sales proposal from my sales manager. It's going to have your trade value on it, the price of the car, the processing fee, and the taxes and tags. We're going to break it all down so that you can see a simple bottom line at the bottom. And then those numbers should be agreeable because it has everything, our sales price, your trade value. You just simply sign at the bottom and we proceed from there. So I believe customer service has a lot to do with telling them what the next step looks like. And I think that's something anybody can implement. The greetings, the thank yous, and then when you go to get a sales proposal, explain what you're going to do and what the next steps clearly are.
Dude, I'm 100% with you on this. When I think of some of the processes, let me give you a quick example, right? You bought a car. Congratulations. You bought a car. You are going to spend 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever thousands of dollars of your hard-earned money on a product. And most dealerships, it is, here's an envelope. Thank you for your business. There's the door.
Well, a great solve for that would be kind of employee appreciation events at the dealership. So a lot of these dealerships are, Taj Mahals. They're really
they're fancy as hell.
I know. I don't even know if I belong in a fancy dealership. I need a rock lot and a really ugly showroom to fit in. But for those of you that have fancy dealerships, hosting events once a month, open invite to all of your customers. I remember back in the day, my grandfather used to go to the dealership in Easton, Maryland, and they would have crab feasts once a month.
Celebrations. Let's celebrate this thing, right? I'm hearing where you're going with this.
I went to the Rorman Honda store grand opening in Schaumburg, Illinois, and they had a cool party for all of their customers, and the community really appreciated it. So leaning into local community events and then publishing on social media as if you're endeared to your local community. If I was a dealership, in fact, I was with Justin Moore the other day. He's the owner of George Moore Chevrolet here in Jacksonville. He's supporting the local football teams. He's visiting local bakeries and doing content with them. Just kind of proving that you're a part of the community and then hosting cool things at your dealership, offering it up just to your customers. They appreciate that. And that can't be sinking the ship financially. Everybody's capable of doing something nice.
No, look, celebrating a transaction is not sinking the ship. Here's the thing. How often do you have a birthday, John?
But once a year.
Okay, about once a year. All right. And most people go celebrate that typically with a meal, right? It's pretty common. Why is it common? Because I know almost every time I go out to, Texas Roadhouse, which anyways, no fancy anything, right? Somebody, there's an army of people coming out from the kitchen and they're slapping their knees and they got cowboy hats on and they are celebrating, all right, this person's birthday with a $20 steak. $20 transaction, but we can't do that when someone spends $40,000 on a car. I'm just saying.
I'll give you an example. Russ Flips Whips is the master of this. Anytime somebody ever bought something from him, he had a process in his dealership where he would walk up to anybody who worked with him and he would say, Mr. Smith, Nautilus, Mrs. Benson, Navigator. And then that was the cue to the person that worked with him to say, Mrs. Benson, thank you so much for buying the Navigator. And Russ would film him. my name's John. I'm the general manager at the store. You're in great hands with Russ. If there's ever anything he can't handle, this is, you're welcome to reach out to me directly.
Absolutely.
Again, my name's Jon Frederick. So Russ invented, I really do think he's kind of like
process. It's a process.
He invented this process where he would walk up to like 4 people after they bought it, and he would say, Mrs. Smith, navigator. And then they had to turn around and say, thank you so much, Mrs. Smith, create a personalized video. He would take 4 or 5 of those, push them together. And when the person walked out of finance or right after they bought the car, he sent it to them. That's crazy. That's like the kindest, nicest little small town thing. I don't know if we all think we're like incapable of doing that or we're too busy or whatever.
We're not incapable. I mean, come on. If a restaurant can execute that on a $20 steak, there's no reason at all that we can't execute what Russ does on a $40, $50, or a navigator, a $90,000 purchase.
That's something we train all the stores. Like we've turned that into fundamental in our dealership training. And I don't think people see that coming. We're like, here's like a nice thank you. And they think we're going to come there and teach them how to do TikToks. But we believe, like we try and seep into the other pieces of the process.
That's hyper personalization. All right. That leads to a meaningful impact because it's a little thing that's got a big impact, which ultimately creates loyalty. Now, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation. I still want to talk a little bit about technology because you brought it up and I think it's phenomenal. But here's the thing, guys. I'm going to warn everybody out there watching and listening right now. If you're utilizing a piece of technology in your communication efforts or your marketing efforts, and it doesn't have context on who that customer is and what they own and maybe what they've said over the time they've interacted, then you're using a bot and nobody in the world appreciates that. And by no means are you creating any loyal customers. Anyways, John, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Are you injecting too many robotic conversations into your dealership's technology? Like, do employees even like, or do customers even like that?
Hell no.
Because the other day I talked to somebody and they were like,
dealership just checking off the proverbial box that they did it.
Your scale is bigger, your leverage is bigger, but funnel your qualified leads to the happiest person possible. I remember, we hired a person here and like somebody was like, oh, they only made 15 phone calls that day. I was like, I don't care. I don't care how many phone calls they made. I just need somebody on staff for when they call in, they're greeted by somebody who's really happy. And I was like, if it's almost like the burden of an executive is to not let all the stress and the grind and your financial, I mean, like I bootstrapped my company, right? And I don't have like the biggest company in the world, but I do have a nice company with high revenue and good margins. And I am blessed to be able to pay 7 employees' salaries every month. And it's like, it's just injecting good human experience into it.
Well, it is. It's human experience through technology, right? And guys, look, there are technologies out there. There are technologies out there, like the company that sponsors this podcast, Podium. But anything needs to have context, all right? Like, go back to the very first thing John said was about the person who had a little black book, right? And kept notes, or the caddy experience. You knew the wife, you knew the kids, you knew what schools they went to, the sporting things like that, all right? Look, technology needs to have context. If it doesn't have context, it's literally just an expensive paperweight. And all you're doing is just checking off a proverbial box that you communicated with someone. Guys, I think there's huge opportunities to utilize technology with our people, enhancing our processes, right? I mean, Russ's example or John's example of Russ, all right, is using that piece of technology, all right, in a process to execute a very personalized thing. This is what the ultimate goal should be, but it has to be a combination of these 3 things. All right.
It's another thing, Jason, like understanding the client's family as well, or what they do.
Yes.
My wife runs a wealth management office and she manages maybe like 400 clients. I don't know. And she has notes on where their kids go to school. She has notes on what they like to do with their spouse. And they definitely do the happy birthday phone calls for everybody. And that you'd think in an extreme professional service environment, that might be kind of nominal. But I mean, as people age, as they become older, as they go through life and get divorced or some tragedies may happen, you sometimes are the only phone call to somebody on their birthday. And like, as long as it's personalized, as long as you have the context and you read the notes in the CRM and their kid goes to University of Florida and plays lacrosse and, they own a boat and sometimes go to the Keys with it. You say, hey, Jason, it's Jon Frederick. I'm just calling to say happy birthday. And I hope you'd get that boat down to the Keys. And if you guys are ever in Gainesville for a lacrosse game, let me know. I'm there once a month. Like, that's a powerful phone call. How much better is that than happy birthday, Jason?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. So like when you think about it, if you're a dealership right now, you're watching, listening to this, utilizing technology should not replace that. All right. What it should do is it should give your salesperson's time to execute on that. So when you're thinking like, I think too often we look at technology where it's like, we're just going to use it everywhere. No, but the objective needs to be for it to pick up some of the heavy lifting so that the people can go back to being people and just engaging the way people engage and making those type of meaningful connections. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. And I mean, it can go really far. I am like a pretty psychotic sales guy. I try to tone it down nowadays that I have salespeople working for me. But, like when I look at my HubSpot and I look at a contract that I had out or a proposal that I had out to a company and I see that they opened it. And it might have been like they opened it 4 days ago. Sure. And then this morning they opened it again. I might just call them in the moment and not to twist their arm. Just say, hey, Mike, how's it going? I don't want to put any rush on you. I was just touching base. I know that, you were out last week and I wanted to follow up to see if you guys were still considering that. So that's like, I knew it was on their mind. I can visibly see that they just opened it. It's a very directed and appropriate thing for me to do, but I am using technology to do that.
Well, see, that is a process that you are using technology and you're the person, all right, that is executing it. Like, guys, look, real loyalty. And going to the big problem we were solving today, all right, a lack of personalization and follow-up marketing, all right, the real thing that is needed here is a balance of people, process, and technology. And I can guarantee you, look, guys, I visit hundreds of dealerships, all right? If you aren't having real loyal customers in your dealership or you're not personalizing your follow-up marketing is because you have a full lack of imbalance in one of those three places. So just sit back, take a quick inventory, do a quick index, all right? When it comes to personalizing your follow-up marketing, are you including the people? Do you have the clean process? And is the technology ultimately supporting it like the way Jon just described? That's technology supporting a process that he's created to ultimately create a better people connection. Sum it up.
Yeah, if I was a dealership to get started today, I would practice my greetings, seeing if the technology I have at my fingertips that I'm already paying for could empower them to be personalized and better. I would practice our thank yous, same thing, see if the technology we have could make them better. And then practice our personalized outreach, like a birthday phone call, see if we have the technology and the notes on hand to make those better. And then consider hosting an event at your dealership every once in a while. 100%. Humanize your dealership, make it a place people are welcome to stop by, and make it a place where your employees are proud to work and empower them to take care of their following. And don't be afraid of letting a salesperson consider that customer to be their customer. That's where the real estate market is right now. That's where wealth management is. Any consumer-facing executive, whether you're a lawyer, physician, realtor, they empower those people to treat the customer as if they're their own. Yep. And in the dealership world right now, we've got a little bit of an imbalance where the rooftop says that's our customer.
Well, and that's the winning mix right there, man. That's the play, right? And guys, for out there watching and listening, I know we haven't necessarily touched on everything, all right, in today's conversation. I think we touched on a few things. Hey, Jon, for everybody out there watching and listening, I know who maybe like to connect with you, maybe continue some parts of this conversation or even learn more about what you're doing with Freddie Media. What's the best way to connect, Jon?
Hit me up on LinkedIn. I've got a big following there. I kind of don't shut up on LinkedIn. So Jon Frederick on LinkedIn. We've got Savannah Sims is on the team as well. People always connect with Savannah. Russ is out there. Look for Russ. But yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, Jon Frederick. We'd love to connect.
Awesome. Hey, for everybody out there watching and listening, we appreciate you. The biggest compliment you can give us as content creators is to share the show. Seriously, it's the biggest thing you do. I know people out there like, smash that like button and hit subscribe and stuff like that. To be honest with you, that's great and all. All right. But the biggest compliment you can ever give a content creator is to share the show. If you got a manager, a colleague, or a friend that needs to hear some part of today's conversation, it means so much when you share that show. Jon, thank you so much for taking the time to jam me today. This has been a blast. You have yourself an amazing day. Thanks, Jon.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks for tuning in to the Driven Loyalty Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Happy